Beaumont didn't give up hope of finding his 3 children.
I don't believe that the children are dead, and I'll cling on to the hope until there's any evidence found otherwise.
Known as Jim, Mr. Beaumont died last Sunday with no closure on the missing children's case. 9-year-old Jane, 7-year-old Anna and 4-year-old Grant disappeared at Glenelg Beach on Australia Day in 1966 and were never seen again.
I know many people all over Australia really feel for us, and well, what can you say at this moment?
The last sightings of the children claim they were in the company of a tall, thin man. The family was victim to cruel hoaxes, and even clairvoyants from across the world offering help with no steps further to cracking the case.
There's been several false alarms over these past harrowing 9 months for you. Oh yes, it raises our hopes, and we're let down again.
The police investigation was never closed. An old factory site was dug up in early 2018, but no remains were found. Detectives say that Jim Beaumont was extremely private, but still wanted answers.
It's very important that he hears what's occurring first before anybody else.
We will always do anything humanly possible to locate the Beaumont children and take them home to their family.
On Australia Day in 1966, 9-year-old Jay Beaumont, her 7-year-old sister Anna and their 4-year-old brother Grant left their home in Adelaide's Somerton Park for the short bus ride to Glenelg Beach. Their mum gave Jane some small change. It was meant to be for the bus fares and for some lunch, and she farewelled her children. They were due back early that afternoon, but they have never come home. From this moment on, parents all over Australia didn't feel comfortable letting their children play unsupervised, and parental supervision really ramped up from here on. For each generation, there is a crime that resonates. And so, for South Australians of a certain age, it's this case. Hello and welcome back to Crime, Mystery and Mayhem with Kate. If this is your first visit to my channel, hello, welcome. It is great to have you here. Here on my channel, I talk about true crime stories. I find them interesting, and I'm quite intrigued as to why some people do the horrific things that they do. There are some really, really bad people out there. Please remember to like this video and please subscribe to my YouTube channel, because it would really help me in my attempts to grow my channel. I cannot do this without you. Okay, so today I am going to be talking about an Australian case, and this case is still unsolved. This is the story of the missing Beaumont children. They went missing in 1966, and still to this day they have never been found. It's really sad. So let's jump in to the story. Super sad. In 1966, it was normal for children to go places alone without their parents. So kids would just, go off together, go to the beach, go to the park by themselves. It was a normal thing. It was a more carefree time. Yeah, parents weren't so strict. That was until the Beaumont children went missing. So they went down to Glenelg Beach in Adelaide, and they'd never been seen again. Everything changed after these children went missing. Their disappearance just shook the whole country. Jane, Anna and Grant Beaumont lived with their parents, Grant, aka Jim, a former serviceman and taxi driver, and their mum, Nancy. I'm going to be calling their dad Jim throughout this video. Jim and Nancy got married in December of 1955, and they lived on Harding Street, Somerton Park, which is South Australia. It was in the suburb of Adelaide, a suburb of Adelaide. They lived quite close to Glenelg Beach, which was a really popular spot for families to spend the day relaxing in the sun, making some sandcastles, just having a great time at the beach. It's a nice summer day. Where else would you rather be? And on the 25th of January 1966, in the midst of a summer heat wave, have you ever experienced summer in Australia? It is crazy. Jim, he dropped his kids off to the beach before he headed off on a 3-day sales trip. So he was off to Snowtown. The kids had a great time at this beach and they went home without incident. The next day, which was January the 26th, 1966, and was also Australia Day, Jane, Anna and Grant wanted to go back to the beach. So they went and they asked their mum if they could go to the beach, and she said, yep, no problem. She couldn't see the issue in it and just told them to be home by noon. This day was particularly hot. So instead of walking to the beach, the children decided that they were going to take a bus, and this bus was leaving at 8:45 a.m. And it was only a 5-minute trip, so not far at all. Like I said, at the time, it wasn't unusual for children to go out on their own. And the oldest child, Jane, she was actually seen as quite a responsible child by her parents. Her mum said that she acted more like a 15-year-old. Also, the children were literally at the beach the day before without any issues. I know what a lot of people will probably be thinking. These children were so young and the beach can be super dangerous, especially considering the youngest child was only 4. But please don't blame the parents. It was a different time. It was completely different in the 60s. Everything was much more relaxed. Okay, so their mum Nancy had told them to be home by lunchtime, and she was expecting her children to walk through the door at any moment. At first, Nancy thought that her kids were just running late, and she wasn't too concerned. She went down to the bus stop to meet them. They didn't get off the bus, and she was just like, okay, they might be walking home, they might just be late, she might be catching the next bus, maybe they missed their bus, you know. So the next bus wasn't actually scheduled for another hour or so, like an hour and a half, 2 hours. Also, by this stage, their dad had just got home. His trip away had been cut short, and when Nancy told him that the children weren't home yet, he actually felt immediate unease about the situation. They usually showed up when they were told to. So where were the kids? Where were they? It was now 3 p.m, so 3 hours after they should have been home. This is not like them. They're actually quite responsible children, their parents said. Jim and Nancy were starting to get really worried, and Jim had a gut feeling that his children had been taken. He didn't think the kids could have drowned because this was a really, really busy beach, and someone would have noticed if there were 3 children drowning, right? It was Australia Day. Everyone was at the beach. It was packed. He got into his car and immediately drove to the beach and started searching for his children. But after thoroughly searching the entire area, he realized that his children were not there anymore. So he went home and he told Nancy that he could not find their kids, and they both immediately started searching the streets. They went street by street. They went door knocking. They went to friends' houses just to check. Maybe their kids were there for some reason, but they weren't. Also, remember, this is a time before cell phones, which makes it even more difficult. Before good technology, the parents looked everywhere. They could not find their kids. That's when at 5:30 p.m, they went to the police station and they reported their 3 children missing. They must have been so frantic. Police, they responded really quick and they organised a search of the beach and also the surrounding areas. So at first the police thought that maybe the children were nearby and maybe they just simply lost track of time, but the parents were like, no, our children would have shown up on time. They always do. Volunteers helped, and so many people, hundreds of people were helping. It was actually the largest scale search in South Australia's history. The beach was scoured, drains were flushed, and hundreds of witnesses came forward. Police started to get really concerned. They could not locate these children. That's when they expanded the search. So they searched the sandhills, They searched the ocean. There were boats out there looking, and they also searched nearby buildings. They were also monitoring the airport, rail lines, and interstate roads, just in case they had been kidnapped and the perpetrator was trying to take them out of state. So then in the evening when, the children went missing, Jim Beaumont, their dad, he went with the police and he rode in the patrol car, and they scanned the streets, street by street. Then after, they dropped him off home, and he immediately got back into his own vehicle and he continued looking. I would too. I would not go home until I found my children. So when 2 days went by without their children returning home, Nancy was reportedly placed under sedation by a doctor. She was so upset, as any parent would be. They weren't having any luck with the search, and within 24 hours, the entire nation was aware of this case. Also, officials were offering a reward for any information that would lead them to locating the children. So when I saw how much the initial reward was, I felt like it was quite a small amount for, 3 missing children. It was only 250 Australian dollars, which is just under 2,400 Australian dollars today. It just doesn't seem like much, like not enough incentive for somebody to, be like, oh, I did it, here you go, I don't know. So a woman actually came forward and said that she had spoken to 3 children who looked a lot like the missing children. This was at about 7 p.m. on the day that the children went missing. She said they were near the Haven, it's like a lake where people keep their boats, so it's like they're stored there. So on January the 29th, 1966, authorities had the Haven drained, and 40 police cadets and members of the emergency operations group searched the area. They just completely searched, like they emptied the thing, they went through it, fine-tooth comb, they could not find anything. At the time, the police were inundated with people that wanted to come and give information. And all they had was a little room at the front of the police station that was used for witnesses. So it's just this little room, that's all they had. They had only one phone for the police station, and people were queuing up to give statements. It was so busy. They did not have enough manpower. They also only had 1 sergeant and 4 policemen there, so not many. Witnesses started to come forward, and a few said that they had seen the children in Colley Reserve, which is near the beach that they'd gone to. These witnesses said that the children were with a tall man with fair to light brown hair. He had a thin face and looked to be in his mid to late 30s. The man had a sun-tanned complexion and a thin to athletic build, and he was wearing swimming shorts. The witnesses said that the children were playing, and they were also playing with him, and they appeared to be relaxed and enjoying themselves. It didn't seem like anything was wrong. It kind of looked like he was their dad or their uncle or something, like they knew him. This man actually went up to one of the witnesses and asked if they had seen anyone near the children's belongings, because apparently the kids' money was missing. So after that, the man went off to get changed while the children waited for him. Maybe he offered them a ride home, because why would they wait? But apparently the children waited until he came out of the changing room. Then at about 12:15 p.m, fellow beachgoers noticed that this man and the 3 children were walking away. So they're walking together away from the beach. Then about 2.5 hours later, another witness saw the children. They were still with the man, and she observed him carrying an airline bag that was similar to one that was owned by 9-year-old Jane. That's the oldest child. So when Jim and Nancy were told about what these witnesses had seen and what they were saying, they were quite confused, because their children were shy, especially their oldest child, Jane. And they felt like it was just strange that their children would be seen playing with a complete stranger so comfortably. and that it was totally out of character for them because they were shy. They wouldn't just hang out with a stranger. So when the investigators heard this, they started to think, oh, maybe the children had known this man. Maybe they met him during a previous visit, because these children regularly go to that beach. So maybe they got to know him. Maybe he was a local. Maybe they grew to trust him. That's when Nancy told the investigators that her younger daughter, Anna, the 7-year-old, had told her mum that Jane had a boyfriend down at the beach. But at the time, Nancy just kind of thought that it was her little girl being silly and didn't really think much on this because, you know, it's like, oh, Jane's got a boyfriend, that kind of thing. But yeah, so she thought her little girl meant maybe just a friend, a playmate that they, you know, another child that they met down at the beach. And she basically just brushed it off, didn't really take notice of that until after the disappearance. That's when it was like, maybe something more was going on. It was a chance remark at home that didn't seem significant at the time, but now it does actually support this theory. Then a shopkeeper at the local bakery who knew the children because they'd been in there before went to the police, and he told them that Jane had bought pastries and a meat pie and she'd given over a £1 note. But it turned out that their mum had only given them 6 shillings and 6 pence, which would have covered their bus trips and, you know, some lunch, but she did not give them a £1 note. So where did this £1 note come from? Where did they get it? So police believed that the money had been given to them by somebody else. Maybe that man that they were seen with at the beach, and police now viewed this as further evidence that the Beaumont children had been with another person, because so many people are coming forward. They're describing this man, and they're all describing the same sort of look. But who is this mysterious man? Another witness came forward and said they saw the Beaumont children walking alone at 2:55 p.m. So apparently the children were walking away from the beach along Jetty Road in the general direction towards their home. This witness was a postman and knew the children quite well. So his statement was regarded as being reliable. It's hard when police are purely going by what, you know, witnesses are saying, because you don't know if these people are telling the truth, or maybe they got it wrong, timing wrong, you know. It's basically all they have at this stage, just people telling them what they saw. The thing was, there wasn't any physical evidence at this point, and there hasn't been much at all. The children seem to have just vanished into thin air. 3 children, young children, you would notice, right? So the postman said that the children were holding hands and they were laughing while they were walking home. The police were confused by this statement because these children were usually really reliable, and investigators couldn't understand why the children, who were already quite late, because if it's 2:55, they're like nearly 3 hours late home, they were walking casually and laughing and singing and, you know, holding hands like there was no care in the world. The investigators felt like the children would be concerned that they were late. They would, right? They'd be concerned about their lateness and would be quickly trying to get home. They might be running, like, you know, they'd be trying to get home because they'd get in trouble. So when I read this part of the case, I automatically thought that the postman might have something to do with it, you know, the children's disappearance. But then the postman, he went away and obviously thought about the statement he'd given the police, and he came back to the police station the next day and he had a new version of events. So apparently he got his timing wrong, and now he thinks he saw the children in the morning when they were heading to the beach, and not in the afternoon like he had previously told the police. But I'm having trouble with that one, because I'm thinking he saw them walking in the direction towards their house, right? Wouldn't that be the opposite direction to the beach? Maybe. I'm a little bit suspicious. I could be wrong though. So several months would go by and these children were still missing. 9-year-old, 7-year-old, 4-year-old. Where the heck are these kids? So this is when a woman came forward and she said that on the night of the children's disappearance, a man who had 2 girls and a boy with him went into a neighboring house. She thought this house was empty, she didn't think anyone lived there, but he went in with these kids. Then later, this woman said that she saw a little boy. He was walking alone along the footpath. So shortly after seeing the boy, she saw that this little boy was being chased, and then he was grabbed and he was roughly caught by a man that she saw earlier with him. So then the next morning the house appeared to be deserted again, and she saw neither the man or the children ever again. So this is my issue. Firstly, why did she wait so long to tell the police? Why did she let several months go by? Secondly, why wouldn't you do something if you saw a small child being chased and roughly grabbed? Like, if this little boy, he was only 4, you would do something, right? Maybe she was just one of those people who didn't like to interfere with other people's business. But honestly, if I saw a small child being chased and grabbed like the way she's described, I would most definitely either say something to the man or call the police immediately. But that's just me. I've got a 3-year-old. Logan's 3 now. So I feel like if I saw someone grabbing somebody Logan's size, I would do something. I just feel like if you see a child who appears to be in danger, you do something. Even if you do think it's their parent. You don't shy away, right? Or my other thought, she made this whole thing up. I don't know. It just seems odd to wait so long to come forward with such information. Everyone knew that these kids were missing. It was 2 girls and a boy. A little boy. What do you guys think? Alright, moving on from that. The police were getting reports about sightings of the missing children for about a year after they went missing. And the Beaumont case attracted international attention. Then, on November the 8th, 1966, Gerard Crozet, a Dutch psychic, was brought to Australia. So apparently he was going to assist in the search, and this caused a media frenzy. They went mental over this, because some people believe, some people don't. But unfortunately, this didn't really help investigators at all, because this psychic, he kept changing the story. He was changing it day by day, and he wasn't offering any clues really as to where the children could be or what happened to them. But apparently he did say one thing. He identified a spot at a warehouse that was near the children's house, and he said that he believed their bodies were actually buried there. So with that information, the investigators decided that they needed to excavate the property. So that, yeah, which obviously annoyed the owners because they didn't think it was fair that their building was going to be demolished because of a psychic claim. So they were reluctant to allow this to happen, but eventually they did give in. They were like, okay. They went ahead, they gave the go-ahead. Because the public were kind of bullying them. Yeah, they were pressuring the property owners to let it happen. There was a lot of publicity around this case, and the public thought that the psychic could be right, and maybe the children had been killed and they were buried at this warehouse. So with all of that publicity, they were able to raise 40,000 Australian dollars to have the building demolished. That's an equivalent to just over 600,000 Australian dollars today. That's like $800,000 in New Zealand. But guess what? Guess what? They found nothing. The children weren't there. Nothing that belonged to them were there. There was nothing. There were no remains or any sort of evidence tied to any members of the Beaumont family at that property. So that sucks for everyone involved, right? Money well spent, wrecking someone's property for nothing. So actually in 1996, the same property that I just spoke about was going through a partial demolition, and the owners again allowed investigators to go in and do a full search of the site. But once again, they found nothing. But again, it was a big site. Like, they could be there, but they couldn't find anything, and they did a full search. I really feel for the parents. They would have been going through absolute hell, not knowing where their 3 children were and what happened to them. Honestly, it is every parent's worst nightmare for your children to just disappear. So 2 years went by, and they still had no idea where these 3 young children went. They didn't know what happened to them. They knew nothing. So that's when Nancy and Jim, they received 2 letters. One of these letters was supposed to have been written by their oldest child, Jane, who at this point would have been 11 years old. And the other letter was written by a man. And this man said in the letter that he had the children and that he was keeping them. So envelopes always had a postmark when they were sent through the mail. And these letters' postmarks showed that they came from Dandenong in Victoria. So in the letters, Jane said she was okay, and she basically described a relatively pleasant existence. She seemed fine, and she mentioned that the man was taking care of them, and the police believed that the letter was from Jane because they matched it to her handwriting, and it was very similar. This surely would put Nancy and Jim at ease, right? Knowing that their children are alive and that they're okay, but still sad that they're not with them. So the other letter, the one that the man had written, it said that he had appointed himself as the children's guardian, and he would be more than happy to return them home to their parents. Cool. He had written down an address and a time to meet up. So the parents, they're undoubtedly excited. They're going to go get their kids. They hadn't seen them in 2 years, and they headed off to the spot to meet this person and reunite with their 3 children that they had not seen for 2 years. Emotions would have been so high. So on the way to the spot, the parents were followed by a detective. He was following them because he would be taking the man in for questioning and potentially arrest him for kidnapping these kids. But when they arrived to the spot, no one was there. Their hearts sank. What was going on? This is a cruel, sick joke, right? They didn't understand why someone would do this to them. It's horrible. That would have been the worst feeling. It would have been like they were losing their kids all over again. And they eventually left and they went home. Some time went by and another letter arrived for Nancy and Jim. This was another letter from Jane, and she said that the man saw this detective who was following her parents and decided that he wouldn't hand over the children at that time. Jane said that the man felt betrayed by her parents and that he decided that he wasn't handing them over. There were no further letters after this. Nothing. So in 1992, the letters were actually examined again because by this stage they had better technology. They took the fingerprints off the letters and they found that they matched to a 41-year-old man who was actually a teenager at the time that these letters were sent. So investigators went and they spoke to this man, and it turned out that the whole thing was a hoax, and he had written the letters as a cruel joke. What kind of person does this? It is sick, honestly. These are 3 young children. They are missing. How can you... Oh, I don't understand. I do not understand how anyone would find that funny. It is not. It is disgusting. It's actually quite sick. And maybe this man needs to go and get some psychological help because there is something not right with him. You do not do that crap. I'm so angry with him, honestly. Also, to make this even more infuriating, the police couldn't charge him with any sort of offence because of the time that had elapsed. Oh my god, so infuriating. Breathe, Kate. Okay, so in the early 1970s, Nancy and Jim, they actually separated. The pressure of losing 3 children had ultimately devastated their marriage. They couldn't continue. Like, it was too much. So sad. Their parents are separated. Okay, so let's talk about some possible suspects in this case. There are some suspects that the police have. There's Bevan Spencer. His whole name is Bevan Spencer von Eyman, and he was sentenced to life imprisonment in 1984 for killing a teenage boy. And police, they started to suspect him in this case because an informant told police that Bevan was bragging about taking 3 children from a beach several years earlier. And he said that he'd taken them to conduct experiments. Weirdo. So the informant said that Bevan told him he performed brilliant surgery on each of the children. Apparently he had connected them up. Like, I'm thinking that movie, what's that movie when that guy puts all those people together, like mouth to butt? I don't remember. Let me know if you guys remember. But apparently one of the children had died during the procedure and he had to kill the other 2 children. Then he dumped their bodies in bushland south of Adelaide. The police said that Bevan resembled descriptions that were given by witnesses of the unidentified suspect from 1966. So when investigators spoke to Bevan, he basically refused to cooperate. He was not having any part of this. No, it wasn't happening. Didn't want to know. Can't make someone talk, right? Police have also said that this particular informant had given important information during another case, and they regarded him as a genuinely reliable source. However, police had mixed feelings on this one because, yes, there were enough plausible details to warrant further research, but there were other details that didn't fit in with known facts about the Beaumont case, and the police were very skeptical about it. But in saying that, Bevan has not yet been ruled out as a suspect. He is still a suspect. So while Bevan was known to go to the beach that the children went missing from, apparently he was there to perv on women, and he would go and perv on them in the changing rooms. He was described as also having an unhealthy interest in children, so basically a pedophile, maybe. He was younger than the unidentified suspect, who was reported to be in mid to late 30s. Bevan was in his early 20s at the time, so I don't know. Also, the Beaumont children were much younger than his previous victims. His previous victims were in their late teens, early 20s, so they reckon a serial killer doesn't tend to change their victim type, but also it's not unheard of. They can. You know, they can kill like a 80-year-old and then start killing kids. Like, you know, but it is not common, I guess. So what are your guys' opinions on this guy? What do you think? I'm interested. Let me know. It's also said that police were looking through some old footage in August of 2007 about the Beaumont case, the Beaumont children's case that was shot by a news station when the story first came out. And in this footage, they could see a young man. And this young man looked just like Bevan, and he was among onlookers. So there you go. What do you guys reckon? Okay, next suspect. This is Arthur Stanley Brown, and he was charged with the murders of 2 sisters in Townsville, Queensland. The sisters had disappeared on their way to school in 1970, and they were actually found strangled several days later in a dry creek bed. So similar to Bevan, Arthur looked similar to descriptions that were given by the witnesses, but the police couldn't get a hold of any of his employment records, so that would help shed some light on his movements at the time. They couldn't find anything. So they really wanted to, you know, see where he was at the time of the Beaumont children's disappearance. It's believed that some of his records were lost in the 1974 Brisbane flood, or maybe he destroyed them himself, because apparently he had unrestricted access to government buildings. I don't know why. Yeah, there isn't any evidence that he was in Adelaide at the time that these kids went missing. Also, he was 53. So at the time that they went missing, he was 53, and the suspect was reported to be mid-30s, so my age. Yeah. But we will most likely never know for sure, because he ended up with dementia and Alzheimer's, and he died in 2002. So, I don't know, unless the police find something. All right, next suspect. This is James O'Neill, who was sentenced to life imprisonment for the 1975 murder of a 9-year-old boy in Tasmania, and is reported to have told people that he was responsible for the Beaumont children's disappearance. There's no actual evidence to link him to this case, but he did say in an interview with police when he was asked if he killed the children that, this is what he said: "On legal advice, I will not be going to say where I was or what I was doing." He did say later that he'd never been to Adelaide, where the children went missing from, where they lived. But the thing is, I looked at this guy's details. He worked in the opal industry at the time that the children went missing, which took him to Coober Pedy a lot. To get there, he would have had to drive through Adelaide. So the South Australia police have actually ruled him out as a suspect. I'm not sure why. But yeah, so he lied about not ever going to Adelaide because he would have had to drive through often to go to work. All right, next suspect. This is Derek Percy, and he was a convicted child killer. There is alleged evidence that was gathered by cold case investigators that pointed to Derek in a number of unsolved child murders, including the Beaumont case. He actually took an insanity plea in 1969 because he was apparently suffering from a psychological condition that prevented him from remembering things. So remembering details of his actions. Apparently he said that he believed he might have killed the children, the Beaumont children, because he was in the area at the time, but he just could not remember. He didn't remember if he did kill these children. That's what he's saying. I don't know, what do you guys think? So in 1966, Derek was only 17 years old, which seems quite young to have been this unidentified suspect, because the witnesses said the guy was in his mid-30s, right? So how does a 17-year-old look like a 30-year-old? I don't know. Derek Percy was imprisoned from 1969 until his death in 2013. What do you guys reckon? Who do you think did it so far? Any of them? So the next suspect is Harry Phipps, who was a local factory owner and then member of Adelaide's social elite. This guy was, people actually think he did it. Like, people are really sure he did it. So he came to police attention after the publication of the book The Satan Man, Uncovering the Mystery of the Missing Beaumont Children in 2013. So this book didn't actually name the identity of the Satan Man, but Harry's estranged son Hayden said that his dad did it. Harry looked a lot like the man that was seen talking to the children at the beach. Also, he was wealthy and known to be in the habit of giving out £1 notes. Remember, the kids had that £1 note? And later it was alleged that he was a pedophile and he lived only 300 meters away from the beach that the children went missing from. Super close. Hayden, this guy's son, who was 15 at the time of the disappearance, came forward to researchers in 2007 with this claim. He said that he had seen the children in his father's yard on January the 26th, 1966, the day that they went missing. Like, what the actual heck? Is he telling the truth? Is Hayden telling the truth? His brother says he's not. His brother says that he was, he's a sick man. But I don't know. Apparently, Harry asked 2 teenage boys if they could dig 2 holes for him in his factory yard that weekend for unstated reasons, and he also paid them. So, in November 2003, a 1 metre squared section of a factory in North Plimpton, which had been owned by Harry, was excavated, and a ground penetrating radar found one small anomaly which can indicate movement or objects within the soil. What do you guys think about that? But they're saying there wasn't any additional evidence and investigators closed the site. So I don't know. Did they find something? On the 22nd of January 2018, Adelaide detectives announced that they would return to the factory site and conduct further excavations. So they want to go back. Does that mean they found something the first time? The excavation was done on the 2nd of February 2018, and it took 9 hours. All they found were animal bones and just general rubbish, but nothing relating to the Beaumont case. There have been decades of speculation and theories surrounding the Beaumont children's disappearance. Quite a few. So I'll just go through a few of them. Some people think that they were abducted. That's what I think. Many believe that the Beaumont children were abducted, possibly by the mysterious man that was seen with them on that fateful day. The lack of ransom demands or any communication from the perpetrator adds a layer of complexity to that theory. Other people think that they ran away. Some theories suggest that the children ran away either voluntarily or under duress. However, the lack of any trace of their whereabouts or attempts to maybe contact their families makes the scenario less likely. Also, they were so young. 9, 7, 4. Can you really see a 4-year-old running away? What do you guys reckon? Other people think that it was an accident. Something happened. Like a tragic accident, such as drowning, possibly. However, the absence of any evidence, combined with the eyewitness accounts of the children in the company of this unknown man, it just casts doubt on that theory. Other people think that they were institutionalized or hidden. Speculation has persisted that the children were either institutionalized under different identities or deliberately hidden by someone with bad intentions. Don't know. Other people think that internal trafficking was involved. So in the area when the Beaumont children disappeared, awareness of international child trafficking was limited. Yeah. Some contemporary theorists suggest the possibility that the children were taken out of the country. Possible. Advancements in forensic technology have brought renewed hope to unresolved cases, but the Beaumont children's disappearance predates these innovations. DNA is great. It's awesome. It's sophisticated, but it wasn't available in the 1960s. So as a result, the ability to re-examine evidence or identify potential suspects, it's very limited in this case. Despite these tech constraints, the Beaumont case remains open, and law enforcement, they are not going to give up. They are going to keep going. They haven't stopped. They want to keep going until they find these children. The Beaumont case resulted in one of the largest police investigations in Australian history and remains one of Australia's most infamous cold cases, even after all of these decades. Australian police have never given up on this case, honestly. They've never given up. If you research this case, they are constantly at it. The state government also continues to maintain a $1 million reward, Australian $1 million, for information relating to the children's disappearance and finding them or their bodies. This case truly changed the nation, with a large number of people changing the way that they supervise their children daily. At the time, it was never publicly suggested that the children shouldn't have been allowed to travel unsupervised or that their parents were in any way being neglectful, simply because it was a different time. People thought that their kids were safe. However, this case, it marked an end of innocence in Australian life. This was actually the year my dad was born, 1966. At the time of the investigation, the Beaumont parents, Nancy and Jim, they received so much love and support, sympathy from the Australian public, and they stayed in their home just in case their children ever came home. Nancy in particular held hope that the children would return, and she actually said in interviews that it would be dreadful if her children did return home and their parents weren't there waiting. So over the years, as new leads and new theories emerged, Nancy and Jim cooperated fully in exploring every possibility. Whether it was claims that the children had been abducted by a religious cult and were living in New Zealand, Melbourne or Tasmania, or some clue that suggested a possible burial site for the children, they stayed with it their entire lives. They were devastated. In 1990, when newspapers published computer-generated photographs of how their children would look as adults, it was so upsetting for them. The pictures published against their wishes caused a huge wave of public sympathy from a community which was still very sensitive to this pain. So as the years turn into decades, the absence of answers have left a scar on the Beaumont family, the community, and the nation at large. The mystery persists, like an unresolved chord that resonates through the years, calling for resolution and justice. Where are they? What happened? The case of Jane, Anna and Grant Beaumont is a stark reminder that even in the face of relentless investigation and the passage of time, some mysteries just remain so hard to crack. Until answers emerge or the truth is revealed, this case will remain a haunting testament to the fragility of innocence and the enduring pain of those left behind, waiting for a resolution that just might never come. I also want to talk about another lead in this case. I've left this one to last because I feel this one might be it. I don't know, it's my gut feeling, but what do you guys think? I'm going to read it. So a young boy was keeping a diary back in the 60s, and he would write about his everyday activities, like a lot of kids back then did. Heck, I kept a diary. When I was younger, I would always write in my diary. I'd write all sorts of random things, like about my day. Anyway, so this boy, he kept this diary. And also one of his friends, another boy, wrote in it as well. They would talk about their adventures at the beach and how they would go diving off the Adelaide coast in the summer of 1966. So they're talking about what they're up to, being down at the beach, the same beach that the Beaumont kids went missing from. They also talked about who they went diving with and who they went to the beach with, which was one of their dads. This guy was a guy called Alan, and also a family friend called Anthony Munro, who was actually later sentenced for abusing boys in 1965. So this diary actually puts Anthony Munro, who is a convicted pedophile, on the beach in the days surrounding the children's disappearance. This diary, it was handed over to detectives. It looks really good, right? Good evidence. So one of the boys who wrote in this diary is actually one of Anthony Munro's victims. So Anthony abused his own friend's child. Disgusting. I also read that investigators had evidence that people were willing to cover the truth about Anthony Munro. This is evidence dating back to 1965. I'm not sure what that evidence is, but the son of Alan, who Anthony abused, told police that his father Alan and Anthony Munro were involved in the Beaumont disappearance. He just said it straight up. They did it. Alan was actually investigated in 2007 because his daughter told police she believed that he was responsible. So that's now 2 of these children saying that he was involved, along with Anthony Monroe. But the issue was, when police looked into these allegations, they couldn't find any evidence that Alan was involved. There was nothing. But why would these 2 children say that he was? What do they have to gain? Also, Anthony Monroe lived in the area in 1966, and his friend Alan actually told police that Anthony was involved. Also, the diary puts them in the area at the time, and Alan's son said that on one of the days back in 1966 that he was actually meant to go with his dad and Anthony to Glenelg Beach to do some diving. He was told he couldn't go and then he had to stay home. He was kind of annoyed by that, but he wrote it down in his diary that, you know, on this day I wanted to go to the beach but I wasn't allowed. They went by themselves. He said when they came home, both were upset, and his dad had his hands on his head and he was saying shit, shit, shit. He also claims that there was sand and blood in Anthony Monroe's car. His sister goes even further. She said that her dad came home wearing a bloodied shirt, and extraordinarily, she claims that she saw the Beaumont children's bodies in the back of the car, of Anthony Monroe's car. What do you guys think? Do you believe this? Do you think it's true? Some people say it's not true and that she's making it up. Apparently she's batshit insane, but that's just what people are saying. It could be true. Where there's smoke, there's fire. I don't know. The siblings have also said that there is a well that's on their dad's property and it's been filled in, and they want investigators to dig up this well. So what do you guys think of that? What do you guys think so far? Apparently this well's never been dug up. Sadly, Nancy and Jim, they divorced, like I said, in the early 70s, and they lived separate lives. They sold their home, and the South Australian police remained informed of the couple's new addresses because the case is still open. It's still open right now. They accepted in the end that the truth of their children's disappearances may never be discovered. Sadly, Nancy died in an Adelaide nursing home on the 16th of September 2019. She was 92 years old. Jim died also in Adelaide on the 9th of April 2023, last year. He was 97. They lived for so long without their children. I don't know what mementos that they kept of their children, like what clothes, what toys, what drawings, but it's heartbreaking that the most powerful evidence that these parents have that their children existed is over 50 years of heartache. It's just so sad. This case has never been solved. They could not find anything. There were no clothes. There were the bag that Jane had taken to the beach that was found. There were no towels, nothing. They found nothing. So when the children went missing, they went missing with their belongings as well. Because those people that think, you know, oh, drowning, why would they take their bag and all their things, like their shoes and stuff, and with them when they're going swimming? And it just doesn't make sense. It does point to someone taking them. What do you guys think? Out of those suspects that I went through, who do you think did it? Any of them? I don't know, but I want them to dig up that well. I really want them to dig up that well. Maybe we need to get a petition. Maybe I should start a petition. Get that well dug up. Because what if the children are in there? I know it might be like, you know, when that psychic said that the children were buried at that warehouse and nothing came from it. But it's possible. They actually put quite a lot of resources into digging at that site. I'll put a video of it in here. But yeah, they put a lot of resources into that. So if anyone knows anything about the disappearance of the Beaumont children, please contact the Adelaide Police. We need to bring these kids home. They were 9, 7, and 4 years old. They were so young. Too young. Please don't hate on the parents. It was a different time, remember? But yeah. Like, even, like, I'm an 80s baby. I was born in the 80s. And when I was a kid, my brothers and I, we would just go do whatever. My parents would tell us, like, come home when the street lights go on. That was, you know, we didn't have our cell phones and stuff like that back then. But, so, my family were quite relaxed. And we'd just go do whatever we wanted. These days, it's like, your parents kind of need to know where you are at every second of the day. I'm a little bit like that with my kids. I'm like, where are you? What are you doing? Yeah, maybe I need to back up a little bit. But then you hear these stories about children being taken. It's like, oh, it's so freaking sad. These 3 kids, innocent little kids, and they're so cute. And I reckon somebody came and got them, and I reckon it was that last suspect I told you about, the Anthony Monroe. That's just me. That's my gut feeling. My gut feeling could be completely wrong. Other people think that it's that Harry Phipps guy. Like, there's a lot of people that think it's him. Because that, yeah. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there today. I hope everyone is having a wonderful morning, and day, and night. Whatever it is where you are. Stay safe. Look after your kids. Don't let them go anywhere alone. I actually said that we should, you know how you can get those, what is it called when you microchip your pets? You microchip your pets with your details and stuff. I reckon when we have kids, they should be microchipped with like a tracking device. If anything happens, boom, we can find them. Right? So if you put a little microchip into your pet, my one, it went into the middle of their shoulder blades, and yeah, so I reckon like once we have a baby, take the baby, just put a microchip into the back of their neck, and when people go missing, because there's a bunch of missing persons, you can just track them. Boom, found. Why can't we do that? I don't understand. Why can't we do that? Someone tell me, why can't we do that? Why can't we put tracking devices into our kids? It would save a whole lot of crap, because there are so many missing persons out there, which I would get a tracking device. Like, if I go missing, they'll be able to find me. I don't know. What do you think? Should we get tracking devices? Absolutely. Anyway, I'm out. Have a wonderful morning, day, night, whatever it is where you are, and I will be talking to you later. If you have any suggestions for a case that you think should be told, let me know. Comment section. Have a great day, guys.
To return
Bye.
here to the new Castalloy factory in North Plympton in the search for the Beaumont children. That is 9-year-old Jane, 7-year-old Anna, and 4-year-old Grant, who of course disappeared from Glenelg Beach more than 50 years ago now, back in 1966. Now, police did search this factory back in 2013 after information first surfaced in a book called The Saturn Man. Now, The Saturn Man, it has emerged, was a book about a man by the name of Harry Phipps, a deceased businessman who lived here in Adelaide. The information was that he had killed the Beaumont children, and 2 men had claimed they'd dug a gravesite, a large hole here at the factory around the time that the Beaumont children disappeared.